So it's over. 2024 is over. 2024 was honestly my best year of reading ever in my whole entire life, okay? Because to say that I read 85 books last year, it's like insane to me. My brain can't comprehend that I actually read 85 books. Who would have knew? Who would have knew? When I set this goal for myself at the beginning of last year, it was a very back and forth thing. I thought I would either accomplish it, like surpass it, or either not even get close. I'm just excited that I get to actually talk about all the books that I've been reading with people who actually care, like yourselves. So yeah, we're gonna get started into these books. I want to do like a rapid fire wrap up pretty much from October, November, and December. I want to try to like rapid fire it because I feel like most of these books I have talked about in the videos in the past, in the last few videos that I've already did. These books were in. There's like 3 or 4 that probably wasn't talked about at all, but most of these books I already wanted to depth and talked about a lot, but I did wanted to do the end of the year wrap up. I have my handy dandy computer here because what did I read 3 months ago? I have no idea. So the first book that I read in October was Our Wives Under the Sea. I rated this book a 3.5 stars. I was debating on reading this. I initially was so excited to read it, but then once I saw one of my friends' review on YouTube of this book, they pretty much was saying how they didn't really understand it and like what was the purpose and what was the point of this book, which I totally understand. I really did enjoy how descriptive it was, but other than that, it kind of fell through for me. It was like so descriptive to where it was bland, if that makes sense. Like I liked the descriptive part, but once it was just talking about the color of water for like 5 pages, I was like, what is happening? What is going on right now? I did like the way that it was written, like the dialogue in this book was super cool, and I feel like I don't really read things like that normally. But to have a book be 220 pages, to feel so freaking long, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And then because I read that book and I was feeling not the best, I wasn't feeling the happiest with myself, I had to pick up One Piece volume 7 through 9. Like I've said multiple times so far, One Piece is probably always going to get a 5 stars for me. At this rate. At the rate that it's going, I don't see a 4 stars in the foreseeable future. I don't see it, okay? So like, duh. I love the whole thing. There's nothing. I feel like I could just talk about One Piece forever, but I'm not going to because this is rapid fire. Rapid fire. So moving on. And then the next book I read for October was The Night Shift by Stephen King. I really did enjoy this. It had a lot of cool stories that I haven't heard of, but then it also had a lot of cool stories that I've already seen or have heard of or watched the movie at some point in time. So it wasn't like it was bad. I think this is why it's going to be hard for me to reread some of my books because it's not going to hit the same, and that's something that scares me. So because of saying that, I feel like that's what this book did. I just felt like I've already seen it or heard it someplace else, so it wasn't like authentic to me, even though it probably was, don't get me wrong. It just wasn't hitting the same for me. It, like, say if I never heard any of these stories before. Some of the stories I have heard before, but they were so different in this book, which I really did appreciate. And sometimes it's just hard for me to really get into a book that has so many short stories, because to keep reading a whole different short story like back to back is kind of like hard for my brain to do. But other than that, I really did enjoy this book. I rated it 4 stars, so I think another win for Stephen King, if I must say. The next book that I read in October was The Only One Left by Riley Sager. I really did enjoy this book a lot, man, like a lot. Like I was actually so happy reading a mystery thriller that I was honestly so thrilled about, like so thrilled to read. It was great. Like, I needed this book in my life, to be honest. Everything about it was just so good. Like, the mystery part, I was, like, confused for half of it, and then, like, needing to read this to figure out what the heck was happening. I think Riley Sager killed this one. I'm glad I listened to the TikTokers or the memes that I was seeing of people saying, oh, if you haven't picked this book up, you should. Like, I'm glad I listened to it because they were right. They were right, and I loved it. I loved every second of it. I was eating this book up, okay? I rated this book a 4.5 stars. Highly recommend. And because I've been reading a lot of spooky, scary stuff, I decided to take another break and pick up One Piece again, 10 through 12, which I'm happy I did. Just as good as all the rest, to be honest. Just as good as all the rest. I don't really know what to say, but that I'm absolutely, 100%ly that's not even a word, but you know what I mean, in falling for these characters. And I probably picked that book up because I knew I was about to go into like haunted territory, so I wanted something fun and uplifting in my life, because the next book I read was The Exorcist. Now, it wasn't as good as I thought it was gonna be. Some parts really did have me like, hey yo, hey yo, calm down, calm down. But it wasn't like I didn't see it in the movie. Reading some parts was way more intense than watching it. But it wasn't as good as I thought it was gonna be, to be honest. But I still liked it. I still enjoyed myself. I still rated it a 3.5. So the first book that I read for November, which was my birthday month, Insomnia by Sarah Pinborough. I really enjoyed this book in the beginning. I feel like some parts of it started to just like slow down for me a little bit, but then at the end, like the last 100 pages, it was good. It was good. Like I was down to like put my chopsticks away and grab a fork because I just had to eat it up faster. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Because you know when you eat a chopstick, you don't eat as fast, I feel like, with a fork, because with a fork it's just like... It was giving me a bit of Wattpad, like I said in my last video for when I was reading this book. So my birthday video when I was reading this book, it was giving me a bit of Wattpad. But it wasn't bad Wattpad. It was like that Wattpad that you just want to read, that you just want to binge read. So I wasn't mad at it. I rated it a 3.75 at the end of the day. The next book that I read in November is The Lost Bookshop by Evie Woods. It's not that I was disappointed in this book, because I wasn't disappointed, but I was a little bit saddened that it wasn't exactly, not exactly, because like, who am I? I'm not a writer, but it wasn't what I was hoping it was going to be. I just expected a lot of other things and a lot more magical realism, and it wasn't giving me that. So I guess in that point, I am a little bit disappointed, I must say. But I thought it was good, and I thought the things that there were, like the underlying causes of like women and women can be able to do what men could do, like that underlining all saying of the book was really thought out, and I thought that was very enjoyable to read. But like the parts that I really wanted to read were the magical realisms, and it was like barely in here, just a touch. There was a lot of good quotes in here, I must say, a lot of good one-liners, so that was a good thing, okay? I rate this book 3 stars. Now that I'm thinking about it, it's kind of like a 2.75, but I'll stick to a 3 because this is from 2024, okay? We don't need to think about this book again. Which I kind of have already started to forget, even though it was literally 2 months ago. So, but it was good. I don't think I would recommend it. The next book that I read in November is Maybe Now by Colin Hoover. I can't say that I thoroughly enjoyed this. I can't say that I'm glad I got to finish these characters and wrap up their whole story, because so I just wouldn't have like that little like inkling being like, but I wonder if, you know, but like this book was pretty much pointless in my opinion. Maybe Someday had an ending that you didn't really need to read this book to know what was gonna happen with them, because it's kind of like the exact same ending. Maybe Someday was just good enough in a conclusion to the stories and the characters that we didn't really need to read this. I didn't really need to read this, okay? It just felt like the same things that they were arguing about in Maybe Someday, like at the end of that book, already got resolved, and then for some reason they had to bring it back. I'm looking on here and it says that I rated it a 3.5, but now that I really got to think on it, because I think I was reading this for my 24-hour readathon, I probably was sleepy and didn't really know what I was talking about, but me now would rate it like a 2.75. Yeah. And then the next book that I read in November, why did I forget what month I was on? The next book that I read in November, which is actually the only book that I even closely rated a 5 stars that isn't One Piece, is Somewhere Beyond the Sea by TJ Klune. I think I'm forever gonna love TJ Klune books, honestly. I mean, like, the other 3 that I read is literally on the shelf, which is my favorite of all time shelf. So I don't think... It's sad that this one didn't get a 5 stars for me, but it doesn't matter because I loved the story and I loved how we got the ending of all of these characters and all these little kids, and the love story in here is just so great. It makes me want to find love like this. Like, I'm so glad I got to see my 2 guys, or I don't know if they're even like to be called guys. My 2 main people in this book fall in love and just watch their love story grow and how much they actually mean to each other and how much they care about these kids, imaginary kids, like with powers. This book honestly just feels so cozy to me, like all of his books does, where I just literally just want to sit back, drink my tea, watch my lo-fi, and do nothing else. Or listen to my lo-fi and do nothing else all day. Just sit here hoping that it rains so I can have the little bitter pad. Like, this is the most coziest book and coziest author I feel like I've ever read. And I'm so here for it. I rated this book a 4.75 stars. Very close, but it wasn't quite there. And then the next book that I read in November, we listen. Okay, we listen and we don't judge. Okay, just remember that. The next book that I read in November was Praise. Am I low-key speechless over this book? Yes. Yes, I am. Who would have knew that I would be so down bad for tropes like this? Who would have knew? I feel like the things I want to say, I'm not gonna say for the people who don't like, you know, a little smutty book. But I do. I love me a little smutty book. And this book, 50 Shades of Grey has nothing. Has nothing. Well, it has something. But it has nothing to me compared to this book. Because I ate this book up in a day. Honey, let me tell a day. Less than 8 hours. This book was done. I was ordering book 2 and book 3 the same day of reading this. I was halfway through it and I said, yo, I'm gonna need book 2 and book 3 right now. I ate this book up. Rated it 4 stars. It doesn't get a 5 because, you know, some of the trope was just like, oh my god. But I loved it. It was a little crazy. It was very descriptive. So if you don't like stuff like that, don't read this book. I do not recommend this to you. But if you love stuff like that, like I do, I recommend this. I had a great old time. And then, for some reason, my manga spidey senses was just tingling. Jujutsu Kaisen, the first one, because, see, that right there tells you that I did this in such a spur-of-the-moment thing that I didn't even go to look up if there was a book before this book, which there was. But we read this one first, which I'm not mad at. But I feel like if I did read the first one first, I would have been a little bit confused. But I probably would have gotten more connected to the characters sooner than later. If that makes sense. Anyway, this was really interesting. I love the art of this. Like, absolutely love it. Like, I want to, like, draw some of these people. It's a whole vibe, honestly. I didn't really like the first one as much as I'm liking the one that I just read recently. Now, that one, we'll get there. We'll get there. Let me stop rushing. But I rated this book a 4.5 stars. I think it was really good. I like the story. And I like the guy, our main character. And the guy with the eyes, I'm forgetting everyone's names now. My brain is all over the place. I need to stick to a manga and just finish that manga. But then I feel like there's too many mangas to read and I want to finish all the mangas. Don't get me started, man. I rated this book a 4.5 stars. I highly recommend this manga. It's very good. I haven't started the show yet, but I really am looking forward to it. So then the first book that I read in December was Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I don't think it was her best work for me, honestly. I did love it. I love the characters and the character development that she was going through and the banter that they both had over books and even her and her sister over books. It was super cute and like touching. Like I felt like I resonated with some of the things they were saying and related to the main character so much because, you know, tall girls need love too. Okay, save for the people in the back. But the ending was so freaking cute. It was so freaking cute. But I rated this book a 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. It was good. It was good. And then the next one that I read was Jujutsu Kaisen 0. Once I realized from trying to order book number 2 that there was a book 0, I said I could not continue the series without reading book 0. So it was good. It was just nice to learn things that I didn't know going into the first book. Now I feel like I wish I did read the first book again, but it's okay. It's okay. I'm not mad at it. But either way, I still love the graphics. I love the story. I rated this one a 4 stars though, so it wasn't as good as the first one to me, but it was good to know people's backstories and like where they come from. I did appreciate that. And then the next book I read was Ace of Spades. Now I read Where Sleeping Girls Lie and everyone was telling me, like when I posted it on Instagram, they were like, oh, I can't wait for you to read Ace of Spades. You're gonna love Ace of Spades. You're gonna love Ace of Spades. Thank you. Thank you for telling me that. Because you're right. You're right. I did love Ace of Spades. Okay, I loved it. Alright, the underlying like meaning and like story to this book was so like heartwarming and heart-touching. But their story I just loved, and the way that this ended was insane. And the twist that we were getting was wild and ridiculous, and I would not have. There was some things that I was like have an inkling towards, but most things that we just ended up figuring out, I was like, there is no way that just happened. So I really did appreciate this book and for everything that it gave me because They went through it. I rated this book a 4.5 stars. So close to a 5 stars. But this one I'm really glad I read before the end of the year because I've had it for a little bit now and everyone was right. So I'm glad I got to say that I know what you mean. I am now one of you who would love to recommend this book to people. So, and then we go on a little binge and pretty much read Jujutsu Kaisen 2, Jujutsu Kaisen 3, and then Jujutsu Kaisen 4. That was my binge because I just am starting to fall in love with these characters and I just had to binge read it for a few days. 3 is when I really started to love these characters. 4 is when I actually, if I'm not mistaken, actually rated it a 5 stars because before I think the first one was a 4.5 and then we went to a 4 and then number 2 was another 4, number 3 was a 4.5 and then number 4 was a 5. I am down bad now. I don't have it anymore. So I already ordered the next 4. I think it's the next 4 or 5 books because those aren't a part of my book buying ban. Okay, we already went through this in my last video, or my second to last video. I don't know where my videos are at right now because I've been making videos but having no time to edit them to where by the time I want to post them, I already know they're not going to do good, so I just scrap the whole thing. Just know that your girl is loving Jujutsu Kaisen. I am patiently waiting for the 5th book, okay? And then the last book that I read of the year, kinda crazy, but I'm not mad at it. Eyes on Me, the 2nd book in the Praise series. I just needed this, okay? This book was so good. Oh my goodness. It did take me a while to actually finish it, I'm not gonna lie, because while I was reading this, I was picking up the Jujutsu Kaisen books and finishing those books and then going back to this and then going back to those and then, you get what I mean? So it did take me a while to finish, but I think that was just because the trope was a little weird for me, and so it took me a while to jump on the bandwagon. Because, hey, yo, never in my life. But to read it, oh yeah, to read it is a whole roller coaster that I did not mind being on. Weird tropes got me feeling some type of way, but I kind of don't want to stop. So I am definitely going to want to finish this series. What can you do? I'm just a girl. That is it. That is all the books that I have read. I'm so excited for this new year. As you see behind me, I actually have bookcases now. They are not organized yet. That's going to be a whole different video from the video that I made of creating and building these bookshelves for over 2 weeks or something like that. I'm just so happy and excited and blessed to be here talking to you guys about books and to have books on bookshelves that I never dreamed that I would have. And now it's I can't picture my life anywhere else. It's this was my time. Okay, if I started this at age 19, 21, it probably wouldn't have stuck for me. So I'm not mad at where I am and the place that I am and how I got here. I'm not mad at it. I'm just grateful. But that's all my books for the last 3 months of 2024. And I'm very excited to start talking about all the books that I'm going to get to in 2025. Thank you so much for watching this video. I appreciate you guys so much. I hope I get to see you. You get to see me in another video. Later. Happy New Year.
Oh, hello, Papa.
So sweet like a lemonade. Took time making you the Minute Maid. We can do something new, let me innovate. We can take it slow like we innovate.